Lex Luthor has changed a lot in DC Comics over the decades. Created by Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, and Paul Cassidy, his debut was in Action Comics number 23 in 1940. At first, he was only called by his last name, Luthor. He was depicted as an evil genius living in a giant dirigible, plotting to incite war between countries. This reflected the real-life tensions of World War II at the time. He's soon stopped by Superman, who destroys Luthor's flying base and seemingly kills him, but Luthor would reappear alive, a pattern that defined his character in early years. Another detail from this era that contrasts with his current portrayal is that Lex Luthor didn't have a personal feud with Superman initially. He quickly became Superman's nemesis, but his motives were centered around power and financial gain. Later, he was led into having an obsessive feud with Superman. The personal vendetta that would define Luthor's enmity towards Superman was established during the Silver Age of comics. With DC rebooting several characters and storylines during this era, they reintroduced Luthor, now officially named Lex, in Adventure Comics number 271, 1960. This is when Lex Luthor finally got an origin story. He grew up in Smallville alongside Clark Kent, aka Superboy. As a teenager, Lex was a highly intelligent prodigy in science who idolized the local young superhero. One day, a lab accident caused a chemical fire, and Superboy came to help Lex, but the reaction had already made him lose all his hair. Lex blamed Superboy for the accident, believing he sabotaged the lab. This belief marks the beginning of Lex Luthor's lifelong hatred for him. He began using his talent for scientific research and invention to make gadgets and suits that could help him fight Superboy, who would soon become Superman. Luthor's depiction remained consistent for 2 decades, until 1983. From 1983 to 1986, Lex Luthor had a temporary upgrade in power with a significantly different design. In the run by Cary Bates, Kurt Swan, Murphy Anderson, Anthony Tollin, and Ben Oda, Lex Luthor had a makeover and debuted his iconic war suit in Action Comics number 544, 1983. But a few years later, DC would reboot its universe again after the Crisis on Infinite Earths event. In the 1986 The Man of Steel series, written and drawn by John Byrne with ink by Dick Giordano, Lex Luthor got another makeover in The Man of Steel number 2, 1986. The villain was reimagined as a ruthless corporate tycoon. Byrne was inspired by real-world businessmen, portraying Lex Luthor as a powerful influence over Metropolis, who hates Superman because he is a threat to his dominance. This version emphasized Lex as a master manipulator seeking power through corruption, rather than exploring his side as a genius for inventions that give him physical strength. Despite Byrne's corporate-focused reboot gaining wide popularity and influencing many adaptations down the road, later stories gradually reincorporated Luthor's talent for science. By 2000, it was canon that Luthor's technological brilliance was integral to the rapid success of LexCorp. Also known as Luthor Corp and L Corp, LexCorp Incorporated is a conglomerate owned and run by Lex Luthor that had first appeared in Superman number 416, 1986. Originally founded as an aerospace engineering firm, LexCorp became one of the world's most diversified multinational corporations. No superpower or secret identity. Superman's greatest foe only relies on his intellect and business knowledge to be powerful in Metropolis and eventually the world. Along with Bruce Wayne, Lex is considered one of the smartest people in the DC universe. A child prodigy, Lex was able to create synthetic life forms while still only a teenager. He has a photographic memory, which helped him become an expert in multiple fields, including robotics and bioengineering. He also speaks multiple languages. As a master strategist, he has plotted several large-scale schemes to manipulate global events, including inciting world wars. He evolved into a powerful businessman, combining his technico-scientific excellence with his ability to manipulate others to secure influence in Metropolis and in global politics. With his talent for engineering and science, Lex Luthor has created many advanced gadgets and weapons, including energy rays and flying fortresses. He also identified his enemy's weakness and developed machines and kryptonite-based weapons specifically to combat Superman. He eventually developed a war suit, which granted Lex certain superpowers. It not only gives him super strength and durability, but also allows him to attack enemies with energy blasts and fly as fast as Superman. But in the last decade, Lex Luthor went through significant changes in DC Comics, which directly affected his power set. In the Rebirth era, Lex Luthor embraced a new cosmic direction. In Year of the Villain, he underwent a dramatic transformation into an apex predator after merging with Martian DNA. During this era, he had powers like telepathy, energy manipulation, and flight. He also could travel through dimensions and was essentially immortal. However, he soon regained his human form. After this, the villain got yet another version. A Lex Luthor clone was engineered by Mercy Graves using Superman's DNA, resulting in a Lex Luthor duplicate who's an evil Superman. He has superhuman strength, speed, flight, heat vision, and all other Kryptonian abilities in Superman number 24. But the original Lex was still alive, suffering memory loss and slowly recovering. In terms of tech, Lex's gadgets continued to evolve. In Action Comics number 1050 from 2023, he incorporated Warworld technology, created Mother Box tech, and mastered teleportation. He has also recently reclaimed his title as a master tactician, stepping out of the shadows to lead the new Legion of Doom against the Justice League in Justice League Unlimited number 5, 2025. So, the most interesting fact not so many fans know about Lex Luthor is that there are two versions of the character currently active in the DC universe. One is a clone of Lex Luthor who has Superman-like powers, being an artificially enhanced evil version of the superhero. The other is the real Lex Luthor, yet in 2025, the clone was revealed to be connected to the reformed Legion of Doom. The recent events in Justice League Unlimited indicate the real Lex Luthor is involved with Inferno in a plan to use the Lex Luthor clone. Right now, Lex Luthor is in a fascinating position in DC Comics, orchestrating large-scale schemes of domination, and that's exactly the position he deserves, as the villain who balances out the inherently powerful Superman. Before we move on to discuss Lex Luthor in DC adaptations, let's rewind a little and remember a couple more of Lex's greatest achievements we don't talk about enough. In the early 2000s, for example, he proved just how much ambition he has. In the Superman Lex 2000 number 1, Lex Luthor was elected President of the United States. This relatively forgotten arc marked a key moment in his evolution, being the peak of Lex Luthor's quest for power through political influence and corruption. Of course, he used his political power against Superman. Years later, the villain would once again prove that he could change the game. In the year of the villain event, when Lex became Apex Lex, he did something unexpected by killing the Martian Manhunter. Moments like these, when Lex wins over superheroes, reaffirm his place as DC's greatest supervillain. In comparison, the character's evolution in adaptations is even rockier. Lex Luthor's first live-action portrayal came in the 1950 movie Serial, where actor Lyle Talbot used the identity of Atom Man. While campy by today's standards, this version helped establish Luthor as Superman's main antagonist outside the comics, despite being a mix of different characters into one. Then, in Richard Donner's 1978 Superman movie and its sequels, Gene Hackman brought a more comedic take on the villain. Lex Luthor became a real estate schemer, and his genius scientist side was kept aside. Years later, in the DC animated universe, Clancy Brown gave the character a commanding presence through his iconic voice acting. This new version brought back Lex's evil genius. In Superman the Animated Series from 1996 to 2000 and Justice League Unlimited from 2001 to 2006, Lex Luthor was depicted as a calculating businessman, tech genius, and influential figure who can manipulate even the Justice League. Another important version of Lex Luthor in pop culture is the one in the hit series Smallville, which aired from 2001 to 2011. Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor is one of the most critically acclaimed portrayals of the character. Depicted as a tragic figure, Rosenbaum's Luthor evolved from Clark Kent's best friend into his greatest enemy. This version of Lex Luthor mirrored his comic book origin story from the 1960s. In parallel, a new movie referenced the villain's 1970s Hollywood persona. Kevin Spacey portrayed Luthor in Bryan Singer's Superman Returns, released in 2006, playing the character with a similar personality as Gene Hackman's, but with a darker tone. Jesse Eisenberg then embodied a radically different take on Luthor in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice in 2016 and Justice League in 2021, portraying him as an unstable millennial tech mogul. While divisive among fans, this updated Lex Luthor highlighted the contemporary fear of corporate control in the age of data. The television depiction of the DC universe also changed a lot in the meantime, and Lex Luthor got yet another layer to his on-screen persona with the Arrowverse. John Cryer portrayed Lex Luthor on the CW television series Supergirl from 2019 to 2021, also appearing in multiple other DC Comics-related shows. Cryer's Lex was central to the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, solidifying his importance in the shared universe. In a brief but powerful role, Titus Welliver also portrayed Lex in Season 4 of Titans in 2022. This version leaned heavily into the post-crisis businessman and super scientist hybrid, though his storyline was not a major focus in the season. Lex Luthor also played an important role in Superman and Lois in Season 3 and Season 4. Unlike other versions of Lex, Michael Cudlitz's version actually had more of a vendetta against Lois Lane because her articles contributed to Luthor being convicted of a murder he didn't commit. While Lois and Clark helped fight for Luthor's release after realizing that he was innocent, Luthor's vendetta against the Kent family became central to the series' final seasons, due in part to Cudlitz's powerful performance. Back to animation, the late Lance Reddick and other actors like Wendell Pierce voiced Lex Luthor in different projects. Notably, Giancarlo Esposito has voiced an amazing version of Luthor in the ongoing Harley Quinn animated series since 2019. This Lex retains the classic businessman and master manipulator persona, and Esposito's voice acting makes him sound truly evil. Now, the upcoming Superman movie is about to redefine Lex Luthor. The director and DCU's head producer James Gunn has already confirmed that the three main characters in Superman will be Clark Kent, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor. We believe Nicolas Hoult's version in James Gunn's movie will be pretty comic book accurate. Here's why. Superman is going to be the first movie of the soon-to-be DC universe. It will be the second DCU project after Creature Commandos and first live-action one. For decades now, DC's main competitor, Marvel, has had a successful in-house adaptations division and dominated the concept of a shared universe across franchises. DC is looking to follow in Marvel Studios' footsteps but make something even better. Going for a more comic book accurate approach at this stage is key to making sure DC doesn't make the same mistakes as Marvel. It's never possible to make completely faithful adaptations of anything, but if the DCU manages to be closer to comic books than the MCU in general, that will likely appease fans across the board. Another reason for keeping the movie close to the source material is simply making everyone's jobs easier. If writers are not discovering new waters on screen, just like comic book writers are on paper, but they instead can just turn to the books for a cohesive starting point, that could smooth out the process. If DC is hoping to make good films quickly, it makes more sense to have writers do faithful adaptations than to loosely adapt stories. So Superman, being the first DCU movie, is probably going to be the most similar to comic books in all of the franchise. The further the shared universe is developed, it's bound to become more and more distant from comics. But second of all, and most importantly, the footage released of Lex Luthor in the trailer already hints at a portrayal close to comics. All characters look pretty similar to their DC Comics counterparts. Lex Luthor specifically appears to be Luthor Corp's owner and president, a genius and a businessman. He has a lot of money and power, and he is seemingly trying to hunt down Superman, even reaching what appears to be the Fortress of Solitude alongside the Engineer and a Man in Black. Some fans have theorized that the Man in Black is Lex Luthor's clone with superpowers, or in a slight variation, a clone of Superman instead of Lex. The idea is that Lex himself would have bioengineered the clone to defeat Superman, all as part of a bigger plan to control superpowered individuals, in which Lex would be working with Amanda Waller. This theory makes sense considering Creature Commandos, the animated series that premiered in 2024, could work like a prequel to Superman. James Gunn has already confirmed that Creature Commandos is officially part of the DCU canon. Amanda Waller plays a key role in the animated series, and her influence could be felt in Superman through a deal with Lex Luthor. If Lex Luthor is indeed working with Waller, the stakes will be high. Not only Superman will have to deal with the government being against him and other superheroes, but Luthor can become involved in covert military science, grow his influence within Argus, and become a threat to other characters in the DCU in the future. And this would fit the modern comic book portrayal of Luthor perfectly. In DC Comics currently, Lex Luthor is no longer just a mad scientist or a corrupt CEO, but one of the most influential people on the planet, who has a Superman-like clone of himself out there. Eventually, Lex Luthor being behind the DCU version of the supervillain group Legion of Doom would be a natural progression from him being involved with Amanda Waller, who's behind the government-sanctioned Black Ops team Creature Commandos. Well, for now, we have to wait until Superman premieres to find out the direction they are taking Lex Luthor. Superman is scheduled to be released theatrically in the United States on July 11th, 2025. It's going to be the first project of the first phase of the new DCU, titled Chapter 1: Gods and Monsters. Superman will likely establish Lex's worldview with a great mistrust of aliens and belief in human superiority. Therefore, Lex Luthor could fit into this first DCU phase in many ways. Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is currently in production and expected for June 2026. With Supergirl being family to Superman, Lex's quest for dominance over Superman and other powerful aliens may influence her future and affect the plot of her film, even though Lobo is currently believed to be the main villain for the series. Luthor Corp's science experiments also could be influential throughout the DCU. Clayface, a movie of the villain's origin story, is currently in pre-production and expected for September 2026. Swamp Thing, a gothic horror telling the origin story of the titular monstrous hero, is also currently in development. Characters like Clayface and Swamp Thing may be connected to Luthor Corp's experiments, and the theories go on and on. Now we want to hear your theories. Which version of Lex Luthor is your favorite? What do you expect for Lex Luthor in Superman 2025? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching CBR.